So the last time we started the chapter on disease and immunity, we talked about pathogens and transmission, certain concepts and definitions. We talked about modes of transmission, right? So there's transmission by direct contact and then indirect transmission. Then the body's defense against pathogens, right? There are the mechanical barriers and there are the chemical barriers, and then there's the immune system in case the pathogen does succeed in invading the body. Whether it goes as far as to cause an infection or not depends on how quickly the immune system can respond to it. So we'll talk about the immune system later. Then we talked about mosquitoes and malaria, right? So their vector, their pathogen, so that's the Plasmodium parasite, which is a protozoa, and how they cause the infection and the symptoms and how to control the spread of malaria and possible treatments, right? So prophylactic treatments, prophylactic or prophylaxis basically means preventive treatment, right? So preventive measures, the word used in the book is prophylactic. Lactic measures or treatment, right? Or prophylaxis, which means prevention. Right. So today we will continue with that, and we'll talk about hygiene. Right. So water supply and hygiene, and the entire discussion will focus on the spread of two different bacteria that cause the diseases cholera, right, which leads to severe diarrhea, right, which leads to dehydration and then obviously death. And this happens very fast, right? And that's why it's dangerous. And the other disease is typhoid, right, which causes fevers, high fevers, and other symptoms. And both of these are bacterial. Right, this is caused by, you don't need to remember the name, I believe, but Vibrio cholerae, and this guy is caused by Salmonella typhi. Those are two I's at the end. So the book does mention the types of bacteria in terms of their shape. Right, so you can take a look at that. There's Streptococcus and Staphylococcus and Bacillus and Salmonella and Vibrio and Spirillum, sorry. Right? So just for you to know, there are bacteria of different kinds. Now, what we're talking about in terms of hygiene is, first of all, right, so the topic is hygiene. And we're going to talk about water, right? So water supply, and treatment. So how does water get contaminated in the first place, right? Well, because of humans, right? Mostly. So if human feces, right? So that's the defecation. If human
Like,
feces, hmm?
are we talking about hygiene in general or like just to prevent these two diseases?
Well, in general as well, right? Because there are many other diseases that can be caused by contaminated water, right? These two are right major uh, issues, so to speak, right? So in general, water is kept clean to prevent the spread of cholera and typhoid, and overall health and other uh, diseases or conditions as well. All right. So if human species contaminates a water supply, right? Human feces contains bacteria, right? Now, normally because that bacteria passes, it goes through the gut and then out, it is defecated. We are not, concerned with that. But if it goes back, multiplies, and enters our body in large numbers with water, right, then it's going to be problematic.
Where is like feces located in our body?
Hmm?
Where is like feces in our body?
Feces is the undigested matter that we defecate from the rectum, so from the large intestine, sorry, undigested materials from the large intestine, right? Do you want to understand what we're talking about? Yes? No?
Yes.
Okay. Right. The removal of the feces from the body is called defecation or egestion. Okay. Now, how would this contamination occur? Well, in some areas, if people defecate into water bodies, obviously that is problematic. Or right, there is sewage contaminating a water body. So contaminating a water body, or even if the feces is on land but it's washed off either by irrigation, if it's on agricultural land, or if it's on some other land, maybe by rainwater, right, and it reaches the water body. So in all these cases, the feces, right, ends up contaminating. And so what happens in the water supply, right, whether it is, right, depends on whether it's slow moving or fast moving, where it's coming from, right? The bacteria,
Like
mu- hmm?
feces on land.
On land, well, if the sewage, in case there's sewage that is being released on land, or if people are defecating on land, right, and then so it's there, and then with either irrigation or rainwater, whatever, it's washed off into a water supply, right? So in the water body, the bacteria will multiply, and then you will have a problem, because if that is consumed, right, then it's going to cause the disease, because you're going to have these pathogens in much greater number in the water, and they will definitely, most definitely, right, cause problems. Now, because of that, what we need to do is, yeah, I can work with that, right? We need to, not too much, right? So what we need is water treatment. Now, depending where the water is coming on, again, right? If it's coming from a mountainous region, the water is most likely pure, right? If it's from a slow moving body, if it's from a lake or something, then there are higher chances of it being contaminated, right? But or maybe a slow moving river. But in any case, the water needs to be treated. So what's done is, right, uh, it is filtered, right, through multiple steps, and then this part is not mentioned in the book. So beneficial microbes and plants are also used, and then it is chlorinated. So the filtration process of water is actually mentioned, is given in your chemistry book, I believe, right? And I do believe that we've covered that topic. It's chapter 11, right? Chemistry of the environment. Right, so the filtration removes the larger impurities and contaminants and pollution, and then it goes through various steps where even the smaller ones are clumped together and removed and filtered like that, two or three or four different steps of filtration. And then finally it's chlorinated, which kills, right, pathogens. I mean, it will probably end up killing all bacteria or microbes or whatever, but we're concerned with the pathogens, right? Because chlorine is toxic in general, even to humans, right? If the dose is high enough, right? So the water we're getting probably has chlorine. I mean, right, depending on how the water is being treated, it might have chlorine.
In like swimming pool, like there is chlorine, but that ends up leaving rashes on skin.
And your voice is like sort of garbled, like I can't make out clearly what you're saying. Could you repeat that?
Like in swimming pool, like there is chlorine, but like that ends up leaving rashes on the skin
Yeah, so
for most
yeah,
people.
yes, yeah. So chlorine is added to swimming pools. Definitely, it's also added to water supplies. Uh, Perhaps in some cases it is once the water in water supplies which come to our homes, uh, the chlorine is then removed after treating the water. So it depends again, right, that it's how the water is being treated and in what conditions being sent. But as far as the swimming pool is concerned, right, yes, and so some people's skin are more sensitive than others, and also depends on how much chlorine there is. So it can cause rashes, allergic reactions, or whatever other condition. And like I said, right, chlorine, because what chlorine is doing to the pathogens are cells, right? And so your skin also has cells, so it's going to affect you as well. It's not, chlorine doesn't have a bias, it's a chemical, right?
Yeah.
And we're using it to kill living organisms, which are cells, and so we are also living organisms made up of lots of cells, right? And so it's going to affect our cells as well,
Okay.
right? So not something that we want really. But water treatment is done this way. Now this is for large scale, right? So when we're supplying water to cities or towns or large areas, So this is on a large scale. On a small scale, right, you can use like, those home filter systems, filtration systems, which can be single, double, triple, UV, depending on what you're putting in, right? Plus, you can boil the water, so you don't need chlorination, right? Boiling it, in fact, not even boiling it, for most cases, going up to 60 to 65 degrees centigrade, where you will start seeing a bit of water vapor, a bit of steam coming out, right? Evaporation taking place. It's obviously not the boiling point of water, but 60 to 65 degrees in most cases is enough to kill most pathogens, right? Most pathogens that you would expect to there to be in a water source, right? So you don't really need to take it up till 80, 90, or even to a full boil where you got like, all the bubbling and the, heat and everything. So heating it up to 65 degrees centigrade will kill off most pathogens and your water will be safe to drink. Right? Again, this plus the filtration, so hopefully this will remove most of the chemicals and the sediments and impurities. Something might sneak in still, right? We can't guarantee that. But yeah. Okay. Any questions with that? Hello?
No,
No questions?
no.
Okay. So, since we're talking about water and
If we consume fluorinated water, like would that be beneficial on our body, or like that would harm us?
uh, just I'll you just give me a sec. Right. Right, to answer your question, it's a good question. And as I mentioned, that the level of chlorine that is assuming that the water is chlorinated, it is treated properly. And so, normally you'd expect that the concentration of chlorine in the tap water would be too low to be toxic to humans. But again, there can be cases where it causes irritation, or you could have a smell, or maybe some irritation and digestive issues. So, right, you end up having an upset stomach or something. And there could possibly be, some long term effects as well. So, one thing that could be done is again, employing the use of filtration and boiling the water for about 15 to 20 minutes, and that will remove the chlorine, right? Also, water can be left to stand open, and that would cause the chlorine to, exit the water, so to speak, right? So, I mean, hopefully, if there is chlorine, it's not high enough to cause problems to humans.
Okay.
Now, since we are talking about water and we are talking about cholera, right? So let's, you know, complete that part at least. So, as I mentioned, cholera is caused by the bacterium Vibrio cholera. I believe I wrote cholerae over here. So, correct that. Yeah, just cholera. Right, so this name is given in the book. And as I mentioned, it causes severe diarrhea. And right, the treatment involves, so since I mentioned the other details, treatment involves, right, rehydration. So you need either, you drink lots of water, and if you add some electrolytes to it, as they're called, right? So salt and sugar, perhaps, right? And something else like, or you can get those sachets, those packets, oral rehydration uh, solutions, the ORS that we get, right? So you can use those plus, right? Yeah, so rehydration and replacement of salt. So that's all that, right, you're gonna get with ORS, because you're not losing just water with the diarrhea, you're losing salts as well, right? And then
Mm.
using
Can we just
hmm?
like drink normal water instead of the
Normal
cleaners?
water won't be effective, because it's not, like I said, it's not just water that you're losing when you have severe diarrhea. You're losing different salts, you're losing different ions, minerals, right? Whatever you want to call them. And so those need to be replaced as well, because just putting water in your body and not having enough of those ions are going to disrupt bodily function still, right? So your body's low on sodium, your body's low on chlorine, right? Your body is low on magnesium, perhaps, whatever you're losing, right? And you're also losing energy, so you need to replace that. Then you obviously, right now, so depending uh, how bad it is, in most cases this needs to be done as an IV, so it's directly into the blood, right? And right, antibiotics. So obviously, right, it is a bacteria, and so antibiotics will be needed to kill the bacteria in the body. Now, how cholera actually causes the condition is, it becomes embedded, right, in the walls of the small intestine, the epithelial. So, right, the bacteria or the pathogen, right, embeds into the epithelial of the small intestine, right, and there it releases toxins, right, so stuff that our body does not like. And what that toxin does is that it irritates the lining of the intestine, right? So it irritates intestinal lining. That in turn, right, causes the secretion of a large amount of water and salts, right, into the gut. So large amount of water and salts secreted into the gut, right? And these salts, they affect the osmotic potential of the gut, right? So there are more solutes in the gut now than there is water, and so that causes even more water loss to enter the gut, right? So water is being lost from the body into the gut, and right, that is lost through, right, defecation as watery feces, diarrhea, right? And so that can lead to dehydration. It can cause kidney failure if untreated. It can happen very fast.
Like humans do release species, no?
Hmm?
So humans like do release species, so there are bacteria become in there as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, there are microbes everywhere, right? Some things have much more than others. Like if you just check your hand right now, or the screen that you're looking at, you take a sample and you prepare it and you look at it under a microscope, it's going to have so many different things, right?
And humans release feces because of bacteria like that are embedded into the.
Oh no, see again, right? So uh, I think you're a bit confused about feces. Feces is basically, right, there are types of wastes that we release. I don't know, one is urine, which is the liquid waste, and the
Yeah.
other is the solid waste, which is the feces. So it is, right, normally it's like solid, it's not like hard solid, it's like soft and whatever, right, the consistency is, but it is very much a natural part of our life, right? We consume food, there's undigested material along with water and stuff, right? Roughage, fiber, and so that part goes out as feces. The water content with the urea and other stuff, that goes out as urine. Okay,
In
so
the cholera, it's the same thing.
hmm?
In cholera, like it's the same thing.
Cholera is the name of a disease that is caused by the bacterium Vibrio cholera.
Okay.
It affects your gut, which causes you to have severe diarrhea and lots of water loss through feces.
Okay.
Does that clear your concept?
A little bit, I would say.
So what's the confusion?
Like, I have so many questions regarding it.
Uh, okay. I'll try my best to answer them, and I can look up the answers. So go ahead.
These are the same thing because we are releasing pieces in the in usual as well as like in cholera.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?
Like in usual on usual pieces, like we do release pieces, but like
Yes.
in cholera we just release pieces in like a high amount, I would say.
Okay. Diarrhea
Yeah.
is basically watery feces. I'm sure at some point we've all experienced that, right? It is, right, something that comes with food poisoning,
Yeah.
right? So we have experienced this. Now, what cholera does is it causes severe diarrhea. So, right, lots more water is lost and very fast, right? So once that condition kicks in, treatment needs to, you need to act fast and start giving supplements and the antibiotic. So the diarrhea, right, is also feces. Like, yeah, I've written that over here. It is also feces, but with a lot more water in it than you'd normally have.
So like in diarrhea there are bacteria involved as well.
Yes, well, no, because diarrhea is not a normal condition. Now, doesn't mean that whenever we have food poisoning, it's always cholera. It could be something else, right, that upset our stomach and our the functioning of our gut. So whenever we have food poisoning, oh, I've got cholera. No, that's not the case.
Okay.
Any other question?
No,
What?
not yet.
What? Just like two or three questions were lots of questions.
Yeah, like they were the same as this, like which is the answer.
Okay, right. So that's about cholera. Then, right, we're going to talk about hygiene in terms of food preparation. Right. So hygienic food preparation. Now, in all of this, the main point of concern is that raw meat has the bacteria Salmonella, and this thing can cause typhoid. And right, not necessarily, I mean, typhoid is one particular case, but Salmonella is the most common cause of food. So we're just talking about food poisoning, right? So that is a particular form of Salmonella which is called Salmonella typhi, but other forms, right, and it is the most common cause of food poisoning, right? So raw meat, in short, should be cleaned, washed properly. Just a sec. Right, so it needs to be cleaned, it needs to be washed properly, and also, right, it needs to be handled properly. What does the, right, so cleaned and washing makes sense. What does it mean to handle it properly? Right, which it means that when you, right, wherever you're placing the meat, so the surfaces where you place meat, the utensils that you use to perhaps cut the meat or put the meat, and your hands as well, right? You need to clean all of these after handling. So clean after handling, right? If any of these surfaces, for example, you use a cutting board, right, for meat, and then without cleaning, right, we chop vegetables on it. And so even if, right, you're handling the meat itself properly, but the cutting board wasn't cleaned and you chop vegetables on it, now you've got, potentially you've got salmonella on your vegetables, and the problem will be if you eat them raw as a salad, right? So you're going to risk having food poisoning, right? After all of this, right, you need to cook it well. So cook well, right? And so obviously the heat is going to kill any pathogens that make it that far, right? Also, you know, milk is also treated. So just so that, like, UH3 milk, right? So that's ultra heat treatment. So the milk is heated to a very high temperature and then cooled and pasteurized and etc etc. Uh, Again, for the same reason, to kill pathogens. Then, for example, you freeze meat, right? And then you defrost it. And so what you get is some water with that defrost. And so that can contain salmonella, right? And so you want to throw that water. You don't want that water. Throw away the water, the defrost water, right? And again, handle whatever meat, whether it's chicken or beef or mutton or whatever, right? Handle it properly, as we just talked about. Right, in stores and everything, right, when they, if you go and there's like the meat section or any section, the bakery section, then just see whether the person who's handling the food is wearing gloves, right? It's safe for them as well, it's safe for you as well, right? Also, if you are heating cold food, right, do it at high temperatures on a stove. Why? Because that's going to kill pathogens.
That
Do
if you, put
microwave
the
it,
meat in the
right? If you're going to microwave it, it's not going to get hot enough. Like like normally when you do to reheating, right? Microwave reheating, it's not hot enough to kill, right, the pathogens, or at least all of them. In fact, what you're doing is you are providing them heat and an environment to multiply. Environment for pathogens to multiply. So microwave heated food, we're not going to follow this, right? You and I both know we're not going to do this, but scientifically, right, that is how it is. So microwave heated food potentially has more pathogens, right? It's better to eat it cold than eating something that you've heated in the microwave. Right? Unless you're putting it on the stove and heating it on a stove, that's obviously the best option.
like one microwaving is not like good.
Hmm?
Uh, like why microwaving is not good.
Because, right, you're actually warming it up. It doesn't get as hot, right? So you're actually warming it up, and that mm, increase in temperature is going to sort of boost the activity of the bacteria or whatever pathogen there is, right? And they're going to quickly multiply by the time you're eating it. And in your gut, they're active and they're going to multiply, increase in number, and potentially cause food poisoning.
Okay.
Okay, right. Uh, so, yeah, so over here we also link back to, you know, human hygiene. So, and this is actually a problem that human feces has salmonella, which causes food poisoning. We talked about cholera as well, plus the typhoid, right, pathogen, which is also salmonella bacteria, but different, right? And if humans are not careful about their hygiene, which basically means they're not washing their hands, not washing hands, and then, however they handle food or they meet someone else, and so they're causing contamination and spread. So contamination and transmission, indirect, but it's happening, right? And statistically, you'd be surprised how careless people are in this case, right? They do not wash properly. Any questions?
No.
Okay.
But like how does in typhoid we get fever?
Hmm?
If it's just about like food poisoning and all.
Sorry, what now?
Like how does we get like fever in typhoid if we are like if it's just related to food poisoning?
No, it's different. It's different. Food poisoning is different. Typhoid is a different condition. Typhoid is not food poisoning.
But it's related to food poisoning.
Right, so it's not the same because typhoid, right, it does happen through contaminated food or water. It causes high fever and lasts a long time. It causes headaches, abdominal pains. It does affect the intestines, uh, right? But the difference between uh, regular food poisoning, right, is typhoid is caused particularly by Salmonella typhi, whereas food cause poisoning could be because of Salmonella, which is not the Salmonella typhi. It would be some other Salmonella. Could be because of E. coli, right? It could be because of viruses or toxins. Uh, Typhoid takes time, right, to develop. Food poisoning is sudden. Normal food poisoning doesn't have fever with it, all right. Uh, Typhoid does, and it also has, severe headaches, like headaches and rose-colored spots on the skin, right? That's not something you get. Typhoid can be fatal, right? And it would last multiple weeks, whereas food poisoning lasts a few days, right? So it is different,
Okay.
right? Now we've come to the point where, right, talking about alcohol consumption and smoking. I believe, right, since we spent a bit of time today talking about hygiene and, you know, the effects of not being hygienic, we can talk about that and then antibiotics and antibodies and immunity the next time. Perhaps, just perhaps, we can possibly finish off chapter 12 next week. Okay?
Yes.
Any questions?
Uh, like these diseases like do affect our immune system.
They like, what do you mean by affect our immune system?
Uh,
Like
like the vegan.
no, these diseases are not like HIV, right? So when we study about the immune system, you'll come to know that the immune system actually takes time to respond to an infection, right?
Okay.
So what happens, like the problem becomes is how fast and how severe the disease is. Can the immune system respond in time that it does not become fatal, or right, uh, you know the disease is very strong and it's acting very fast, and it's going to become, a problematic case before the immune system can do anything about it. So the disease is not targeting the immune, it's not weakening the immune system, it's just, causing its effect, uh, in some cases too fast for the immune system to properly, uh, work against it,
Okay. Mm.
right? So theoretically the immune system can stop any infection there is, theoretically, right? Practically it depends on what the pathogen is doing, whether the immune system can, come into play fast enough to stop it or not.
And our immune system like does develop over the years.
It does. Again, right, it has the potential, but it needs to be activated, right? So
Okay.
for example, I have the potential for some disease, right? I don't want to name any disease, but my immune system. Now the thing is that that potential is not going to come into play until I don't face the disease. Right, now many
Okay.
diseases are very dangerous, right? Like measles or smallpox or chickenpox now, right? I got chickenpox the old fashioned way. I actually got chickenpox, right? It's a viral disease. And right? Nowadays children get vaccinated so they don't experience chickenpox, right? And so many diseases are, problematic, dangerous, can be fatal, or just, very painful, even if they're not fatal. And so that's where vaccination comes in, right? You don't want to face the actual disease to get your immune system working. And so vaccines are used to sort of mimic, like simulate a condition where you have the pathogen in your body. It's not the active pathogen, so you're not actually getting the disease, but the immune system recognizes it and it becomes active against it. And so if in the future ever encounter an actual pathogen for that disease, the immune system is already ready.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes,
Yes.
that's like, well, right, but pathogens can change, so that's one reason why we keep getting the common cold every time, right? Because the influenza virus, right, tends to be viral, could be bacterial as well, but with bacteria you get, lots of high fever and everything. So the virus keeps mutating, so it's changing. So if I get influenza once and my immune system is ready to, combat the virus if it comes back the second time, it's not the same thing that's coming back. It's mutated, it's changed, it's different, right? And so the immune system has to go through the entire process again. And that's why it takes, 3, 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, however long it takes for the condition to subside. All right.
Yes.
Okay. So with that, I'll uh, bring the class to an end and we'll continue with this and hopefully wrap it up the next week. All right.
Yeah. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.